Okay, everyone. It looks as though everyone has joined the webinar. I am going to start the presentation. I'd just like to put this in full mode. Okay. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Monica Gaertner, and I'm the product analyst or product champion for Hydro GeoAnalyst. This webinar is going to go through the new features of Hydro GeoAnalyst 2014.2, as well as a review of some features within Hydro GeoAnalyst that we've had some questions on and requests for more information about, namely the template manager, the mobile EDDs, as well as the online sharing. And once we get to the end of the webinar, I will unmute all of the lines, and then we can have a Q&A session, anyone having questions or comments on the presentation. So let's start with the new features of HGA 2014.2. We just released this version a few days ago, last week. The main new features are some enhancements to the general import option in the data transfer system, or the DTS. We also have a new import routine within the DTS, specifically for importing your images. And then we are now having an option where if you were to query the database and include images in the query, you can send that to a PowerPoint report to make nice reports that include the images. And then we've also made some changes to the project tree to help you organize your Office reports as well as the templates used for creating the reports. So let's go through these individually. So the enhancements to the importing, the first one is an option that was requested by some clients, and that used to be in our older DTS, and that was to allow you to save your settings and reuse them in subsequent sessions. So this allows you to save the mapping portion and reuse them so that you can more quickly import in data into the database. There's also a duplication check, so when you're importing in, any stations that are in your source file will be compared against the stations in the database. The ones that aren't in the database will be added, the ones that are in the database will be updated. We've also added an option, again by request from clients, to be able to use a station ID instead of the station name when you're importing in your data. And then we've done some optimization to help make the importing process run more efficiently and more quickly. So let's take a look at how this would look like within the program. So within the data transfer system, the general import option is shown here. And this is the mapping stage where on the left-hand side, you would select the tables that you wish to import data into. Each table will become a tab on the right-hand side, and you'll find the fields here for mapping purposes. So here, for example, we're going to map both the location table as well as the lithology table. So within the mapping stage, you have the option here to select from your saved imports. However, you can't save your first one until you've actually gone through all of the steps to do an import, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. Also down here, you'll see the option we've implemented to allow you to use station IDs instead of station names. So when you have this selected, you'll notice when you're importing into the location table, you have both the ID field and the name field highlighted in green, indicating they're both required. So if we were to take a look at the lithology table, the other thing you'll notice is that the station field, which is of course required for importing the data in, is now an integer, indicating that it is expecting you to be using station IDs. Normally this would be a string if you were using station names. So as I mentioned, if you wish to save your mappings and reuse them for a subsequent session, at the end of the data transfer general import option, you'll have that option here. Okay, so you can save them, and then they will be available here in the mapping for from the drop-down. Now, we've also implemented a new option within the data transfer system to import in your images. So previously you could bring them in one at a time, but there was no option to bring in multiple images all at once. So the option allows you to import either one image per station, so if you're bringing in multiple stations at once, or if you have multiple images for the same station. So you can also choose here to import based on your station name or your station ID. So within the data transfer system, you'll find this option down here at the bottom to bring in your images. And then you'll be prompted to browse to your image files. So here, for example, I've selected 10 different image files, and you'll notice that the names of the files actually match up with the station names for the demo project, as an example. And of course, you can see here that you see a preview of the images. So as I mentioned, you have the two different options, either if you're doing one image per station name, or if you have multiple images that you're importing in just for one particular station. And then here you have the option for either importing in the station by a station ID or by station name. And the last thing that you have to indicate is the field in the database where you're going to be importing in these images. So when you select the Browse button, a dialog will pop up that allows you to pick where the field is in the database. So this is the normal structure you'll see where you have the data category. When you open up the category, you'll have all of the tables. And when you open up a table, here, for example, is the description add-ins table. You can select the field. And so in our normal environmental template, you'll notice that there is indeed a photo field in the description add-ins table. So now that you've imported some images into your database, you can use those images and create PowerPoint reports with them. All you need to do is query the data and the images that you want to put into your reports. And once you've queried them out, you can push them to a PowerPoint template and make your reports. So, for instance, if I were to query out the 10 images that I just imported into the database, include things like the X and Y and elevation, I can now push these to a PowerPoint report with this icon or this button right up here. Now, if you don't have a template already prepared, the program will prompt you to generate one. So here, for example, this one is based on the same query that I just showed you here with these fields. So then the template is going to use these tags, one for each of the fields in your query. So you see you can rearrange things up at the top. Of course, you can put your own logo in and set up your fields. Here I'm going to show the station name in the middle, and then I'm going to have the X, the Y, and the elevation off to the right. And then I can adjust the photo tag or the photo image that is going to be used to be filled with each one of the images in my query. So when you select the print to PowerPoint, you're going to be prompted to either save the report on the project tree or somewhere else. So in previous versions, it would just simply prompt you to save it somewhere on your local machine. But we've added this new option that I'm going to discuss next, which is to save and organize your reports to the project tree. So when you do this, then the PowerPoint presentation will be generated, and you'll notice that you will have one slide for each station with the information that you set up the template to use. So here, for example, is the name, the X and Y, the elevation, and then the image. So you'll have one for each station. So as I mentioned, the last option or the last new feature that we've implemented is to have your reports and your templates used for the office reporting within HGA to be stored on the project tree. Previously, it was storing the old style report editor reports. Now we have a new branch on the tree with the office reports. By default, it will only contain the templates folder, and then for every place within the program where you can, in fact, push to an Office report, you will have a folder. So one for doing your charts, those are your Excel time series, your pivot tables, what we used to call crosstabs, simply tables. Your BHLP goes to PowerPoint, as well as your queries now, as well as the event plans that are used in the event planning module. And then thereafter, you can create as many different folders as you want to store the reports that you generate based on any of these templates. So the way that this is initialized is wherever in the program you're using an Office report, you will be prompted to save the report in a dialog like this where you indicate where on the tree, and you can of course indicate which of the folders that you want to save it in. Or if you prefer to just save it somewhere else as a test, you can do so as well, just save it to your hard drive somewhere. So those were the new features that were implemented in HGA 2014.2. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we've also had requests to review 3 of our more popular modules that people have had questions or interest in. So the first one is the Template Manager, and this is truly one of the most important modules within HGA to become familiar with, because this provides you with the ability to modify the database structure. So you can adjust the tables and the fields, you can add or remove or simply hide any of the tables and fields within the database structure. It also allows you to set up pick lists on fields. So you can force the users to simply pick from a list for particular fields. And this is important for you to be able to ensure the data quality that is being entered into the database by picking these pick lists instead of allowing users to simply enter anything into the field. The Template Manager also now allows you to add as many data categories to organize your tables as you wish, as well as a new feature for the original release of 2014.1, which was back in May, which allows you to add what we are calling non-station tables. These are essentially tables that are not actually related back to the station table or the location table. So when we refreshed the Template Manager for the 2014.1 release, the dialog itself looks new, but the structure is always going to be the same. On the left-hand side, you'll have your tree where you start with a data category, for example, the geologic description. When you open up a category, you'll find all of the tables. And when you open up a table, for instance, the lithology, you would find all the fields that are in the lithology table. And when you select any of the categories, tables, or fields on the left-hand side here, the properties will be displayed on the right-hand side here. So that hasn't changed. So, like I said, if we take a closer look at the lithology table, you can see here all of the fields that are in the table. The only fields that are going to be displayed in the main GUI or the main interface of HGA are the ones that are turned on or checked on. The ones that are checked off are going to be hidden from view, but that doesn't actually remove the field from the table or the table from the category. The other nice thing is that it's very clear here. You can see which fields the primary key consists of. So for example, the lithology table, you can very quickly see that the primary key for this table is made up of the station field as well as the from and the to fields. One of the things that we did improve upon in the Template Manager for the 2014.1 release was the way in which you add new tables. So previously it was a very laborious effort to first add the table and then add each individual field. You had to do that one at a time. So now when you add a new table, you have the ability to add it at the exact same time as you're adding all your fields. So you simply provide a table name and and specify the category that the table should be organized under. And then you can very quickly add as many different fields as you want and set all of the parameters for the field. So for example, whether or not it's a primary key, what the data type is, whether or not you're allowing nulls for this particular field. You have the option here whether or not to create an auto increment for that field, as well as selecting the unit category and the unit. So by default, the tables, when you create a new table, will be considered linked to the station table. But as I mentioned, one of the new features for the 2014.1 template manager refreshing that we did was to allow you to make a non-station table. So if you unchecked this, it would remove the link back to the station table for this particular table. So if you're interested in non-station tables and you just sort of want to take a look at what that would look like, we've implemented a non-station table within the demo project. So within HGA 2014.1 or .2, whichever one you have installed, if you install the demo project, so it won't be in any of the old versions of the demo project, but if you install the demo project again, it will include a new table called employees, and we actually put this under an uncategorized data category, but you can make your own categories to put these tables into. And then you can see this not only in the template manager, but also in one of the new data tabs, which we're calling the non-station data tab. Okay, so that is very similar to the station data tab, except instead of showing the name of the station, it is only going to provide you the option to look at the different data categories where your non-station tables might be stored. Okay, so here you can see an example of the employees table with the following fields: an ID, the first name, the last name, the badge number, and the access level. This is just an example. Of course, the non-station tables you can customize to whatever your project-specific needs might be. So the non-station data tab you can use for manually entering data into the non-station tables, but you can also import into those non-station tables using the general import option. So the next popular feature I'd like to review are the mobile EDDs. So an EDD is an electronic data deliverable, and it's used for field data collection. So in the simplest form, an EDD is essentially telling you what data to place in what particular column. So if you think of an Excel spreadsheet, it essentially will dictate to you what data to put in which columns. This was originally used more for lab analysis data, but now it's really being used for just about any kind of data. It can be very helpful when you're transferring a lot of data from different source files or even from different hard copy reports, etc. You can use the EDDs to help you validate and format your data and prepare it for importing into the database. But what we have now, actually as of the 2013.2 release, which was back in September last year, we have an option to make those EDDs available mobile for a mobile device. So the general workflow for the mobile EDD is, of course, first you create it just like you would create it previously for use within our quick checker. But the EDD template designer has a new option for you to publish it as a mobile EDD. So once you've published it, you can use your mobile device to download it, and then you can use your mobile device to actually collect the data while you're in the field. Once you're done your data collection, you need to submit it, and then that puts it back up to the web server where you originally published your mobile EDD, and then HGA can connect to it and import in that submitted data. So let's take a look at this more in a workflow schematic diagram. As I was saying, of course, you're doing this within the HGA EDD template designer, the way that you normally would for an EDD that you would use within our quick checker, which is an Excel plugin tool. But you have this new option to now publish it up to a web server. So once you've published it up to the web server, you can connect to it with any mobile device like a phone or a tablet. You do need to have an internet connection for this purpose. Once you've connected to it for the first time, it will actually download the forms for the EDD, and then you can take your mobile device into the field and continue to work with those forms and collect the data, which is saved locally on your device. So, of course, when you're collecting that data, you might not necessarily have an internet connection. So that's why everything gets stored locally on your device. So at the end of the day, or perhaps even partway through the day, when you get to a point where you have an internet connection, you can in fact submit back up to the web server any of the data that you've collected so far. And as soon as it's been submitted back up to the web server, HGA can connect to the web server and download that data and import it into the database. So let's take a look at how you would do this within the program. So this is the EDD template designer. This is where you would be used to creating your EDDs for the quick checker. But like I said, you now have this new option, which is going to let you publish it as a mobile EDD. So here, for example, just as a quick review, the template designer has all of the tables and fields that you're used to seeing on the left-hand side. In your template, you can specify which tables and which fields you want for your mobile EDD. In this case, we have the 4 tables: location, lithology, water level, and field measurements. And of course, on specific fields, you can make conditions. So for example, the soil type field is using a list. So this means that the mobile EDD will have a pick list for that particular field. This helps with the data quality. So when you select the option to publish your EDD as a mobile EDD, you'll have 2 options. You can either publish it to the SWS web server, which has all of our connections information stored within the program. All you need to do is provide a name. So by default, it will take the name of the project and then append the name of the template that you're using. But of course, you can change that if you wish. The other option is you can use another web server, so your own web server, but you do need to provide all of the connection parameters in order to connect to it. So once you've published your mobile EDD, you'll get a link that you can take a look at, and you can also send to, say, your field personnel for them to connect to with their mobile devices. So when you connect to this, and this is an example that I published yesterday, so that you can actually go to that link and take a look at the mobile EDD if you wish. So when you first link to it, like I said, it's going to actually download onto your local device. And the first page is the home page. And you're just going to have the list of the stations, which at the beginning you wouldn't have any, and an option to add a new station or the option to submit your data. So like I said, you can use your mobile devices at this time to actually connect to the examples that I published yesterday. It will then download the forms onto your device, and then you can use those forms to collect some example data. So after you've connected to the site, you can, in fact, turn your Wi-Fi off, and you will still be able to use the forms and save the information locally. So for the purposes of using the mobile EDD, we recommend using Apple or Android devices, which are using Safari or Chrome as your mobile browsers. So once you're in the field, like I said, the home page lets you add a new station. So if you click on the Add a New Station, this is the first tab of those 4 tables that we put into our EDD. And you can see here you can enter in the information for the different stations. So I just added in a test station. Then if you select the lithology table, that's the second tab, you can see here I entered in the from, the to, and the soil type. And remember how I was saying the soil type is going to be a drop-down list, and this helps with your field personnel ensuring that they are using the proper terminology that you want for particular fields. Especially important would be the soil type field. So here you can see I've entered in 3 different records for that particular table. And you can also take a look at the water level table. It's essentially looking for the screen ID, the date, and the water level, as well as the field measurements table. So that's going to have some parameters that you might be able to measure while you're out there in the field. So of course you need to submit the date, maybe check the temperature, the pH, etc. This is just an example, and of course this can be customized to suit your project specific needs. So in this case, I had just added a new test station and the 3 records for the lithology table. So once I'm all done collecting my field data, and I'm back to where I have an internet connection or a Wi-Fi connection, I can go and submit my data. So when you go back to the home page after you've created a new station, you must mark the stations as done if you wish to submit them up to the web server. Okay, so you can imagine that if you're out in the field, you might be doing testing or collecting of data at multiple stations, and you want to have a way to sort of say whether or not you still have to collect more data, or say that, okay, in fact, I'm done with this particular station. So you would just mark it from in progress. When you check it, it goes to done, and then you can submit it. So when you select the submit button, you need to provide a file name. Appended to the file name automatically is the date and time, so you don't need to add that. So as an example, you can have multiple field personnel out there using their devices using the same mobile EDD, collecting from perhaps different areas within the project area. And they can all be using the same mobile EDD on their different devices and submitting back up to the same web server. The other option that I want to point out here is you have this option that once you've submitted the collected data, you can actually clear your memory, because remember, this is being stored on your local device. So if you want, you can clear off that memory and then carry on and collect more data with the EDD. So once you've submitted the collected data back up to the web server, HGA can recognize that and import it in and bring it back into the database. So when you select import and then select the mobile EDD option within the DTS, this dialog will appear, and you can select from the drop-down list any of your mobile EDDs that were published. So it will remember the last one that you published. Here, for example, I published this one yesterday, the mobile EDD example for the demo project. And once you hit the refresh, you can see all of the files that have been submitted back up for that particular EDD. So like I said, if you're the project manager and you've created this mobile EDD, you can get multiple field personnel to connect to the mobile EDD and then go and take their devices into the field and collect that data. And as they're submitting the data, you can watch as the data comes up to the web server here within the import option. So this allows you then to import in that data. It's pretty quick, goes through some checks, and then brings in the data. So for example, I added a new station with my mobile EDD called Test Station, and I had those 3 different records with the different soil types, just as an example. So some of the benefits of using our mobile EDDs, you can improve the accuracy as well as the data quality. So instead of having field notes where you're transcribing your field notes and then putting them in electronically and then importing them, you can do that all in one step. So this will also maximize your efficiency and productivity. This also helps with perhaps security. So imagine if your field notes, your notebook gets dropped, gets lost, gets dropped in the water or the mud or whatever when you're in the field. If you have your mobile device with you, we're all pretty used to having either a tablet or a phone on us. The data is locally on your phone, and as soon as you submit it up to the web server, it's also saved up on the web server, so you have that added security. As I mentioned, your mobile EDD, you can add pick lists to the different fields, so this can also help with your data consistency, and in fact, you can reduce your labor costs. When we were originally designing this feature, we were working with a client who was sending out people into the field, and what he would say is that for every 1 day they spent in the field collecting data, they would spend an additional day transcribing and then entering and importing in that data. So they were able to cut their costs and their time in half by using a mobile EDD instead. So the last feature that I wanted to go through is the online sharing feature, and we implemented this actually back in HGA 2012, but we have been having some questions and people were wanting to have a refresher on it. So the online sharing functionality allows you to share parts of your HGA project with people who do not have HGA. So this is actually generating HTML files, and these can be run locally, or they can also be hosted on a web server. So they can be put up on a web server. So let's take a look at how this would occur within the program. So the online sharing option is under the project menu within HGA. On the first tab, the project tab, you would just enter in some of the basics, the name of your project, a description, a logo, etc. The second tab allows you to pick the data that you want to share, and this is going to be coming from your queries. So here you can see the list of all of the queries, for example, from the demo project, and you can in fact select multiple queries to be shared with the online sharing. Okay, so here, for example, I picked 2 queries. And then on the third tab, the Maps tab, you can pick from any of the maps that you have in your project. The demo project has 2 different maps. Then you can pick the layers that you want to show on the map. So the layers that we currently support are the points, the lines, and the polylines. Currently, we don't support sharing out DXFs or image files that you brought onto your map, or the color shading that could potentially be on your map. You also then have an option to show the water levels with the points that you've selected on your map. So once you publish that, you have the similar options to the mobile EDD that I just went through. So you can publish it up to the SWS web server, or you can publish it to your own custom web server where you need to put in your parameters. Or the easiest way, you can in fact just save it to a local file folder. So just need to provide a location for the folder. Like I mentioned, what this is doing is generating HTML files that you can simply zip up and send to anyone else that you want to share this information with. So if we were to take a look at this, this is what it would look like in your browser. So here you would have the same 3 tabs where you've entered in your data. The project tab gives you a little bit of information about that particular project. On the data tab, for example, I picked the 2 different queries, one with the concentrations and one with the water levels, so you can share that data. And then on the Maps tab, you can see the points. I had just selected the boreholes layer from the map project within the demo project. You can select each one of the points and get more information, like the name, the elevation, and the top of casing. And if the points had any water levels, you could click on the water level option, and a pop-up would come up and show you a time series of the water levels associated with the station. So in the background here, this is Google Maps. So when you're looking at this, if you have an internet connection, the Google map will be displayed. If you don't, there won't be a map in the background for you. So that's the online sharing function. So as a summary, we went through the 4 different new features with the HGA 2014.2 release. That included some enhancements to the general import option in the DTS, the new import option to import in your images, and then the option to query out data from the database that includes your images and push that to a PowerPoint report, and then some options on the project tree to store and manage your Office reports and templates. And then we went through a review of 3 fairly popular modules within HGA: the template manager for adjusting the database structure, mobile EDDs to take with you on your mobile devices to collect field data, and then the online sharing, which is an option for you to share parts of your HGA project with people who do not have HGA. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm going to unmute the lines so that you can feel free to start asking questions. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has at this point.
Hi, Jennifer. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Is this Samuel?
Yes, it's Samuel.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, I'm well. How are you? Where is Katrina? She's not there.
No, Katrina is not here, and in fact, this is Monica. I'm using Jennifer's account.
Okay. Never mind. Anyhow, we have so many questions which we can't define them, which I can't define them actually. So when I shall have the link of this session, maybe I'll have some questions. I can clarify my questions. Okay.
Oh, for sure. So what Katrina will do actually is send you the. I'm sorry. Are you one of the distributors?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. So what Katrina usually does is provide you copies of the PowerPoint presentation, and in fact, this entire session was recorded, and you could even go back to the link and rewatch any portions if you have questions or concerns. And then if you can't answer them for yourself, feel free to contact Katrina, and she'll be happy to answer any questions.
That's certainly that I know this procedure. We are waiting for the for the link and to study it more deeply.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. I'll make sure that Katrina sends it to you.
Oh, sure, she does everything. We don't have to remind her.
Yeah, she's pretty good at that.
That's right.
Terrific.
Okay.
Well, if you don't have any questions, then I'll end the meeting. And thank you for your time and your patience while we're going through all of the new features and functionalities. And hope you have a good evening or day, depending on where in the world you are.
Thank you, Jennifer.
No problem. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.